Hello and welcome. Yeah, I have no idea what week we're on, but it is a week of 50 U.S. State Zen quilts. And thank you for being on this journey with me. We are headed to Massachusetts this week. So if you've been on this journey with me, much gratitude and appreciation to you for joining me. If this is your first week, welcome, and I hope that you enjoy it. The other recordings are out there on my channel for you to take and use and create at your leisure. So, yeah, welcome. So, go ahead and offer yourself gratitude and appreciation. Hello and welcome. Yet another week of our 50 U.S. State ZenQuiltz journey. I appreciate you for being here and joining me, whether it be from the beginning or you are brand new. All of the states are inside of my YouTube channel. You can feel free to go back, pick your favorite or all, and join us at your leisure. Yeah. So I have no idea what week we're on anymore. I'm just getting back to it, but I do know that we're on an even number, and it is going to be a week of putting all of the blocks that you have so far together so that you can see how far we've come. We're not looking about how far we have to go yet. We're looking about how far we've come. I'm just teasing you. So offer yourself gratitude and appreciation. Take that pause and let us begin with Massachusetts. Yeah. So here are the tools that I'll be using this week. There was a list in the beginning, so I'm just going to go ahead, push these off to the side, keep everything or push everything out of the way, and just keep my ruler and my pencil. Right. So same thing that we do every other week, and that's to begin with a 3/16 inch border all the way around um, each of our tiles to kind of give that balance or that symmetry to each of our tiles, because really, although we're using the similar color palettes throughout, each tile is so vastly different with its tangle and color combinations that this is just going to ground all of those blocks together and give it some cohesiveness as we begin sewing our blocks. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and from this point forward, we're only going to be working in the center of that frame. So I'm just going to go ahead and find the center of my tile. So that's 1.5 and 1 line. For those of you just joining, my ruler skills and my math are pretty sad, to say the least. So just bear with me as we get through this together. So now that I found the center, I'm going to lay my 1 inch right at the hash line of my vertical, finding the center. So I have my center already defined, and on that vertical line of finding that, I'm going to lay my number 1 on my ruler. And then I'm going to lay a hash at 0 and 2. So in essence, right now we have a 2-inch definition to the center of that tile. And we're going to turn our tile one more time. And I'm going to do the same exact thing on the now vertical line. So vertical line is at 1. I'm going to lay a hash at 0 and 2. So now that I have this box of dots or hash marks, if you will, I'm going to turn my tile so that I can diagonally connect these dots from side to side. So dots connected from side to side across each corner. And I'm going to do that for all 4 corners. Connecting the hash line side to side to create this diamond in the center of our tile. So now that I have this diamond in the center of our tile, I'm going to take each corner of that diamond and I'm going to draw a line right down into the valley of our corner. So from the edge of our diamond in the center down into the valley of the corner, I'm going to draw a line on both sides, which will give us this triangle that connects to this center box. So you're going to do that all the way around the edge of the box or the diamond to the valley of our corner. So we should have something like this when we're done and we're all strung up. So that means we can go ahead and warm up that kneaded eraser, get that stretchy eraser happening. The warmer your kneaded eraser is, the softer it is, the more pliable it is, the more it picks up and the more effective it is, okay? So warming that eraser up, going into those lines, toning them down. As always, we're not erasing. We did these string lines for a reason. We're just toning them down so as we go through and add color, we don't have this string definition interfering in our block. Okay. We can, however, erase our center dot. We don't need that. Okay. So this week again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start tangling first. So with that light gray, I'm going to go right into this center box. Now, in this center box, I'm going to go right back into that center. I should still be able to see that indentation, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a dot. And you can take your ruler or not. We have it, so I know you're all going to grab it. So I'll just grab mine as well. And we're going to add a line from side to side right through our center. And I have my ink in my hand. This isn't going to be erased. This is part of our tangle and where we're headed. I'm going to hopefully try to redefine this one again. Okay, so now that we have these cross lines, we're going to use this as kind of a kickoff to our Tangle Creamy. So we're going to do a little bit of a creamy variation for our Boston cream pie. It's the state dessert. So if you The Boston cream pie is the state dessert. You can never go wrong with a good dessert. So that's where we're starting in the center of this block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a elongated C curve that rests right on that cross line that melts into that center dot. So I'm not going to do a pure rice shape where I want the belly to be in the center. I rather want to kind of shift that belly downward and rest it on the line as it catches that center dot. And then I'm going to mirror. And I'm going to turn my tile and I'm going to do that at each ray line, intersecting the previous I'll call it a petal, intersecting the previous petal as we work our way around. So always wanting to redefine that ray line that comes down or across as we build these rounded bottom heavy petals. Crossing over and in turn creating this inner organic at the same time. Yeah. So now we have this base happening here with our creamy, and we're going to now go into the center. So these ray lines that are defining the center of our original petals are going to be where we're landing for our next layer. So I'm going to start on that line, redefining up and pulling in between and then down, landing on that line. So we're tucking a petal in between what we already have, using the open ray lines to define where those petals are resting. A nice layered organic. That's just a beautiful visual to how it all comes together. And now that we have this kind of organic happening in the center, there are so many possibilities that could happen with this. So I'm going to now define that outer box. So point to point of that first petal, I'm going to define this center patch. And now that I've defined that space, we have choices, right? We can take this and kind of add some detail to it. I see so much happening to this tangle, but in quilts, in the ZenQuiltz series, I'm not really adding detail and allowing just the fabric to kind of be the fabric. So I'm going to let that sit. But man, if you're seeing what I'm seeing and you want to roll with it, please do. But in the background of each one of these spaces, I'm just going to go ahead and add some kind of skippy light gray lines on either side to just kind of fill those gaps in and offer a background to this fabric. I'm not inking these lines in completely. I'm allowing my ink to kind of just dissipate across the paper. Wherever my pen falls is exactly where I want that ink. I'm not going to try to correct it or fix any of those open spaces. I'm just going to let it be. Kind of bringing a depth into the center of this fabric, or I'm sorry, of this block. So our Boston cream pie, I'm a meat and potatoes girl. I'm not really a fan of many desserts. And not to overshare, I'm gluten free, so many of the desserts aren't even worthy of eating, in my experience. So, anyway, there we have it, our creamery for the state dessert Boston cream pie. We're going to let that sit for the moment, and we're going to head to these shallow, long, triangular spaces along the outside. And I'm going to start with drawing a line right down the center of that space and then adding some channels from the left side or the right side to the left side, trying to keep those channels similar in width. And then I'm going to take this space and I'm going to divide it in half. So I'm going to get these more larger spaces on the bottom and just these kind of little trickle of spaces across the top. And I'm going to do that spacing in each one of those triangles to begin with in hopes that I can find some kind of commonality and symmetry in those divisions, right? So I was in Boston in eighth grade for an eighth grade field trip. And I guess it's, you know, got to know your audience, but I can assume that many of you will know the TV show Cheers. So in eighth grade, when we walk into the Cheers bar, just imagine how big we felt to be able to participate in that bit of scenery for only just a moment. But I can say I've been to the bar where Cheers was filmed. All right. I don't even know if it's still there or not. I can only assume that it is, but who knows? A lot can change in 40 years. All right. So here we are. We have these boxes, and we're going to offer some cool beans into these boxes because the Boston baked bean, right, is is definitely a thing. I don't think it's a um, I don't think it's like a state anything that I could find, but we all know that our Boston baked beans are are definitely a common thing that we know and love, or not. Anyway, baked beans or cool beans for our Boston baked beans. I'm just going to start in this open section so it's a bit easier to see where I'm headed. And I'm going to pick a direction and I'm going to add a rounded rice shape. So I don't want too much of a pinch on this rice shape. I'm gonna offer this rounded rice shape from side to side. And then in either box on either side of that horizontal bean, I'm going to offer a vertical bean top to bottom. So it's a rice shape, but minus that sharp pinch. So we're rounding around the edges of that. So now we get a pattern. Every other is going to be horizontal, and then whatever the other is going to be vertical. So we're going to fill in these boxes, every other, horizontal, vertical. Using your go behind, drawing what you can see. And it's up to you whether you connect your corners or you start all over again. So what do I mean by that? So here I have a horizontal bean. Do I want to bring that to this side through the triangle? Or do I want to make this block a brand new line and pick and choose how you want it to go? I'm going to use my go behind of that triangular shape and allow that block to continue through. In the process of letting go in this ZenQuiltz series, I've definitely learned to embrace tangles that I normally would never put together, just for the sheer knowing that it's for a purpose of defining the state. So probably not only would I not put these together, but I would probably never even choose to use cool beans. I'm pretty much an organic girl, right? So anytime I have to draw a grid, I'm out for any purpose. But neither here nor there. It's been fun putting tangles together and know that it's not necessarily about the composition so much as it is the story, which has been a different approach to what I would normally do. It's been kind of fun. And letting go of the detail, because I am one that believes the magic happens after the structure of the tangles, the details of all of that coming together. But in the simplicity of the fabric being built, I'm not really focusing too much or at all on those details. Yeah. So just a different approach. So here we have our cool bean structure. And now we're going to go to each block. And on the corner of each block, based on how your bean is laying, you're going to add this go behind X, always starting in the direction that that bean is facing. So using your go behind, always focusing on the pinch of the bean or the top and bottom of the bean. You're going to add these go behind X lines based on the orientation of the bean. So you're always wanting to focus on where the top and bottom of the bean are in order to determine which direction the X is headed. Interestingly enough, when I first started playing with this tangle, see how our mind kind of plays games with us? I just realized that everything I've been saying, it doesn't matter the direction of the bean at this point because we're just using that go behind X corner to corner. when I first was playing with this tangle, I was focusing on coming up with individual lines from the top and bottom. But now that we're going corner to corner, the direction of the bean doesn't matter at all. So just ignore everything that I've been saying and know that my brain doesn't operate in grids. So my brain doesn't operate in rulers or math, right? We're learning so much about each other, except it's one-sided. I'm just kidding. So, yeah. Anytime I see structure, my brain goes a little bit crazy and tries to back out. It's my protection. But it's actually very easy now that I see this as a go behind X. So thank you for being there when my light bulb went off. Okay, so there are our cool beans. Now, there's a couple different things that you could do to finish this. In the step out, these orbs are inked in, so filled with drama. Or also, you can alternate the step out of these X's or these now triangular go behind sections and intermingle, adding some drama to those. You have the name, you can investigate that tangle on your own because I'm not adding drama. I'm letting this just be a texture to the background. So I don't want that kind of sloppiness, I'm going to call it, on the background of my fabric. I want all of this to speak. So choices, always, always a choice. If ever I ask you to do something that really just doesn't speak to you, by all means, don't do it. All right? Okay. So now I'm going to go and inside of each one of these triangular spaces, I'm going to go ahead and pencil an interior aura'd triangular space. So I'm going to aura the triangle with a little triangle inside, which is going to give me these channels. Okay, so I'm just going to aura the inside of that triangle to offer me some channels. So Massachusetts is known as the Bay State. So with that being said, um, Bay brings us water and brings us lots of seafood choices, but most in particularly, they are known for the Eastern oysters. So this tangle that we're going to offer in here is called Oibe. So Oibe is going to wrap around this now small triangle that we've entered into this space to honor the Cape Cod Bay, the oysters, the state being the Bay State, all of that greatness into one tangle. So here we go. I'm going to start right down here into the pinch of our triangle, and I'm going to offer a wavy line. And it doesn't matter how that wavy line falls in that space, doesn't matter at all. And I'm going to go ahead and fill that wavy line in with these tethered S-curved auras. So each wave of that tether building upon itself until I get over just about to the other side where I'm going to squeeze in an orb underneath that tethered S-curve. So I'm going to the next wave and do exactly the same thing. Tethering those S-curves, tucking them into each other until I get to the other side where I'm going to tuck that orb right under that wave. And then I'm just going to finish this off and have those tethers kind of meld right up into my center there. Okay. Now there's more to this, but for now, I'm going to pause and turn my tile so that I'm now waving again. So this will potentially offer me several waves, or in my case, just one. So depending on how big your waves have been formed, we're just going to work our way around that center aura. And again, doing whatever I can see on the other side. And I'm going to start right where I left off, and I'm going to pick up and add another wave. Adding those tethered auras. And then that orb right underneath. Okay, so here's our beginning. Now that we have this oibe wrapped all around that triangular space, I'm going to go ahead and ink underneath each orb and ground them right onto that line. So our triangular line and the space between the wave is going to get some drama to kind of ground that orb into that space. So in essence, we're defining the outline of this triangular space by default of how we're handling this oibe tangle. So this penciled triangle is kind of going to be our guideline as to what we do next. All right. So this triangle is going to define the top of this row of oibe. So using this as my guideline, I'm going to add some skippy straight lines. And then again, just allowing that ink to fall. No different than we did in that center, offering that texture. Not real defined lines, just kind of filling in that space behind those waves. And because we did this in a triangular shape, our lines that are forming or filling the background of our wave are inevitably going to fall like hybrid. So we're going to start where that line ended and go straight across to define that backspace. Same technique, just filling in those tiny arid or thinly arid lines in that background. So these channels of lines are stacking up on each other, not going behind and not intertwining, but stacking up. So we have this beautiful kind of hybrid version of these lines kind of coming together and forming that inside. Now you have choices. Do you keep the center of that triangle open? Do you maybe add kind of bails on each side with a center little orb to almost mimic the waves that are happening? Possibilities are endless. So, what speaks to you to finish that center triangle, if anything at all? I'm going to go ahead and treat mine a bit like Tripoli, adding those bails right on the edge or those half rice shapes, right on the lines of my edge, and adding an orb to the center. Possibilities are endless. What speaks to you? Okay. So I'm always going to start at the same place. I'm always going to turn my tile in the same direction. And I'm always going to wave from side to side to create that space for those tethered S shapes until I want to add that orb. Working your way around each triangular space. One wave at a time. Doing what you can see. Dropping those shoulders down away from your ears. And offering yourself that breath. Looking underneath those orbs. And by default, completing the outline of that triangular space that was formed from that center block. So we have that beautiful tourist attraction of Cape Cod in our Massachusetts, right? Of course, Boston is our capital. And we know that there's a ton of history in Boston with the Pilgrims coming and the Mayflower and all of that fun stuff. So not surprising that the state flower is in fact the Mayflower. Honestly, I didn't even know it was such a thing. Um, as far as I knew, the Mayflower was a ship. So anyway, yeah, the state flower is the Mayflower. And that's fun. We have Martha's Vineyard. guess it only makes sense, but I had no idea that Boston was known for its oysters. Competition happening here. We should definitely be feeling that magic. That heart rate should be calming. That breath is probably pretty shallow. Our minds are quiet. Right, so there we have it. Our cool beans for our baked beans, our oyster bay or oy bay for our oysters, and our state nickname, the Bay State and Cape Cod Bay. All of these beautiful things coming into play with these triangles. And then, of course, our creamy to represent that Boston cream pie, that state dessert. How about those state cookies being the chocolate chip cookie? They had some interesting state uh, facts defined for Boston for sure. Anyway, we are all tangled up, which means we're going to go to our color. And I've opted for these as our color choices this week, but of course, anything that speaks to you is absolutely perfect and what you should be doing. So I'm going to kind of mix it up this week in that in the center, I'm going to kind of be blending both of these 703 and 676 together into that one space. And again, this week, I'm going to offer the blending technique. So I'm going to go ahead and lay my palettes down onto my acetate. And I'm going to be using my colorless blender to fill in the color to that center. And what I'm going to do is in the center, I'm going to offer that pinky color first, being mindful about how you're laying this color down. So I'm circular motioning this color all the way around my tile. I'm just going to sporadically, now that my center is done, lay some pink out into the edges as well. And now I'm not even going to clean my brush because I don't care. I'm going to be blending it together, and I'm going to come in and offer some of that purple right into that space as well. Now, if you're finding yourself um, pilling that paper, lighten up on that blender. You should not be fighting with pills on that paper just because you're using a blender marker. This beautiful paper will not resist this process. As a matter of fact, it loves helping us through this process. So if you're finding that your paper's resistant or it's pilling or not allowing you to manipulate your color, it's not the paper, that's for sure. I venture to guess it's more of the pressure that you're offering the tool and not even the tool. But if you truly believe that I'm just going in and adding some more texture, circular motion, and filling that space in. If you truly believe that you're not pressing hard on your blender at all, and you're still getting that pilling effect, change your blender. It's run out of juice and it's not doing the job that you're hoping that it would do for you. So just change that out and offer a clean or new blender to the mix. All right. So I've kind of allowed those two colors to kind of mix in the background of this tile, which I kind of am liking. And then I'm going to take that 020, and it is such a light color that I'm going to go directly to my tile. So I'm going to take this directly to my tile. And yes, you're going to see that I'm outlining the space. And then once I get that outlined, circular motion is going to fill the inside. I don't want it to be all linear. But as I go in circular motions and I pull off the sides of where I've outlined, I'm softening those lines and bringing those edges in together and allowing them to kind of meld and soften instead of being so defined and linear. Notice I'm kind of flicking that into the outline as well. I'm not pressing and drawing in one single stroke, which again allows me the opportunity to manipulate that ink, kind of tone those lines down. Coloring and softening right over those edges. Boy, this really light yellow is showing up super bright on the camera, which, as you're seeing by doing it yourself, it's more of a toned down, almost tanny yellow and not so bright at all. A lot of line work happening this week, bringing these together. So I'm going to make sure that my blender is clean from my pink and purple blending. And I'm going to lay my palette on my acetate with my blue and taking that blender, just filling in that background, again, circular motion. And a little of this color goes a really, really long way. So I'm just going to kind of put my palette down in the center-ish, and I'm going to use that for the whole space, allowing the colors to kind of soften as they pull away and spread across in that space. I have almost no pressure at all with this blender into this space. Super light, flowing across space. You can always go in and add more color for depth. As always, I'm not looking to smooth this out and make it real pristine in my color. I'm really enjoying that marbling and texture that happens just by default of that color dissipating and wearing out across that space. Changing that perspective. Is there any place you'd like to add some depth by just adding a little bit more color? So what I'm seeing is the background is just fine to me. I just want that texture. But because of the darkness of the drama inside of our oibe, our center is almost getting lost. So I am going to go back to that center and I'm going to offer a bit of definition. But first, I'm going to go ahead and define it. So I'm just going to go over all of those original lines, redefining, adding the structure. And maybe that'll just be enough. I'm not quite sure yet how it's all going to play together, but it's so great to be able to allow that creative voice to speak to us. And even better when we learn to listen. So if your tile or your block is asking you to do something, and I'm not asking you to do it, by all means, listen to that voice. That's enough for me. I'm just going to offer that redefine and maybe go back into the background, kind of bring some of that texture back out. So although I'm still using that light gray that I originally used to tangle in, it's really now, after a slight redefine that really took no time at all, really popping back out to the forefront of this tile or this block, which is what we want because, you know, it is the center, the focal point of that block. Okay, beautiful. So I'm going to call that done. And now I'm going to go back to my ink and I'm going to add purple around that outer edge. So that 676 is what I'm going to go directly around that outer edge to create that border. And whatever you have, whatever your color palette is, whatever you want to be on your edge is just perfect. Working our way around one bordered edge at a time. And when I'm done inking these edges, I'm going to be sure to lift this tile and take my marker all the way around the edge of my tile, that white deckled edge. So I'm just going to lift this up, and around that white deckled edge, I'm going to tone that down, make it purple so that that material, that fabric that we're creating, wraps all the way around the quilt. No white deckled edges are going to shine through our masterpiece when we're all done putting this together. And then I'm going to take that pink right into that center block. Again, just using this time my marker direct, not blending it all, but rather just allowing the depth of that true color to shine. Right, well, here it is, our piece de la resistance, right? We're going to take that dark gray and we're going to start stitching. So that center block, remember, was one large block, one large patch. So we're just going to go ahead and stitch that all together. All of these individual pieces laying on our table in front of us are now going to come together where that moment is we pen stitch. But while we pen stitch and have this easy put together process, albeit mindful and deliberate, um, certainly not as tedious as putting that needle and thread manually, one push at a time, up and down through the various layers of fabric and batting to create this vision. So just take that breath and allow that magic of repetition to take over right now. You're done stitching all of those patches together. Don't forget to stitch your border all the way around. It's your first week, or I really haven't mentioned it in a bit. You'll notice that I'm not stitching the edge of my block because I'm not quite sure how these are all coming together. So I just want to keep my options open. Um, but if you know how you want these to inevitably come together and be displayed after your 50 blocks are done, by all means, if that means stitching that edge, don't forget to stitch that edge as well. I'm pretty certain I know now how my block will come to, or how my whole quilt will come together. But there's still time to play with it and explore. So now that we are all stitched up, we have to add our depth and our shading to this tile. So we're going to go to, these are the colors that I've chosen to honor that this week. And I'm going to, depending on how dark your center got, I pulled these two choices. So I have process red and violet. And because mine is a bit more pink than it is purple, I'm going to go to that process red. If yours leans a little bit more towards the purple side, I would go ahead and grab that violet. But I'm going to do process red. Again, circular motion right around that outside edge, right where our stitching falls. Keeping that tight against our edge and honoring that pucker or that shadow that happens with that in and out of our needle. Yeah. So just by default of how this is coming together and laying with that shadow on, or that depth on the side, we can start seeing that center just lift right up, that poof of that patch just coming together and coming to life, pulling up and honoring that poof. So I'm going to go to that goldenrod into those yellow sections. And again, that circular motion, staying tight to the stitching. And this is why I like that blending technique on the acetate so much more. I just feel like this just has more of a voice and kind of brings the tile a bit more to life with this technique. But no technique is better than another. Whatever speaks to you and how you bring these quilts together is just perfect. And then I'm going to go to the cobalt turquoise for this blue background. And just be careful with this color because it may overtake pretty quickly. So super light circular motions. You don't want this to define your whole tile. You just want it to define the section. So you want it to blend in. You don't want it to scream, right? So definitely It offers that depth to these patches, that shadow, and just by default of how um, we lay that blended acetate color down, allowing the darkness and the lightness to come together and play and have highlights and shadows in that material just by default, not smoothing out those colors, but rather allowing them to play, intermingling in the highs and the lows. Offers just another level of depth to these blocks. So there we have it. Massachusetts, go ahead and offer yourself gratitude and appreciation for allowing yourself this creative space. Yeah. And go ahead and sign your tile with your chop or your signature, however you do it. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me.